Hello everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. We're going to have a look at the detail on the possible heat wave next week. We're going to get a push up in temperatures certainly through the early part of next week. It looks like it could be curtailed a bit sooner though than the models were suggesting yesterday. Last night there's some very, very hot model runs from the GFS and the ECMWF. I did a blog about it, and there's a lot of excitement about the charts that were being churned out last night on the forums on social media, because it really would have turned really hot next week if those charts had come off or had verified. They still might do, but the idea today is that this heat is not as intense as was being predicted last night, and also but it's being pushed away rather quicker. So instead of extending out into sort of 2 or 3 days of extreme heat, it's sort of ending after a day or two, breaking down into thunder. So more sensible and typical UK type heat surge, if you like, just lasting a couple of days, 3-5 days. The thunderstorm, the classic saying that we have in the British Isles to describe a British summer. A classic British hot spell is about 2 or 3 days, and it breaks down into a thunderstorm. So I'll show you the detail in a second. It is still pushing up with the temperatures early next week. I still think we're going to get very close to 30 degrees, maybe even 32. That's 90 Fahrenheit early next week. So it's going to be hot enough, just not the very intense heat that we was looking at last night. Show you the detail in a second. Before I get on with that, just say about the ads. There's links right across on the page. Have a browse widgets and click through the links. You'll be having to pay for our website. Thanks very much for doing that. There's video ads on most of the pages. They open out in the content when you watch it, close back up again. It does all help to pay for Gasworthies.com. At the end of the video, have a quick look at CFSB2 for the next month. So quite a bit to get through. We're going to start off Central England temperature. After the first week of August, we stand provisionally at 16.9, which is an anomaly of 1.0 degrees above average. So it's around a degree above average again at the moment. Of course, July central temperature came in at 16.9, which is, again, around a degree above average. June was 15.2. Again, that comes out about a degree above average. May, 12.5. That's around 1.5 degrees above average. And so we go on. It's only really been March and April that have been cooler so far this year. March was average 5.8. And April, our only colder than average month, came out at 7.5, which is around half a degree cooler than average. And most of that did occur in the last week of April, which had a very impressive cold spell, of course. So, again, closer degree above average so far. This is provisional, though, only up to the 8th of August. That's probably going to go up quite a bit, though, as we go through the next few days, particularly into the early part of next week. Here is the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles next 2 weeks. The red line here, 30-year upper air temperature average. We're cooler than average at the moment. It felt quite autumnal, I thought, this morning. We'll have a little bit more about it over the next couple of nights. But at the end of the week, we're going to see the temperatures lifting up, going back above average by the weekend. Better scroll down a bit so you can see the dates. There we go. So by the weekend, we're going back a little bit above average. And then we get this movement up in the temperatures. So round Tuesday next week, it does turn hot. But you see, this is less dramatic than we was looking at yesterday when we looked at this. Yesterday, it was moving up to that sort of zone, and it was taking much longer to cool down. It's a very, very slow and gradual cool down, doing something a bit like that. Whereas now, the push up in the temperatures isn't as extreme, and it's cooling down quicker into the second half of next week. Again, dates are on bottom of the charts. Loads of dry weather coming up for the rest of this week and into the weekend and into the start of next week as well. But as we get this peak in the temperatures and then it cools off, you notice you've got precipitation spikes just here. That's probably a thundery breakdown beginning to develop. Nevertheless, a lot of dry weather coming up for the next week or so. The generic chart then, here's the GFS for Sunday. We've got high pressure building through the country. So it's going to be warm at this point. We're going to see temperatures around the mid-20s Celsius, mostly dry. Just nice weather really over the weekend. We go for inside of next week. The high pressure begins to drift out towards the continent. That starts to turn winds into the south. So same idea as we get through to Tuesday. There's the hot southerly wind pushing up. High pressure is over Germany and Scandinavia. Low pressure is in the Atlantic in between the two. We push up this hot southerly. So same idea as we were looking at yesterday. The difference is that the trough of low pressure is extending in off the Atlantic at a quicker rate. So this southerly doesn't last as long. So consequently, that extreme heat, the 20 Celsius iceberg, never really gets up into the UK. There's your bread temperatures for 6 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. And you see the country is within 15 Celsius at 8:58 today, so that's hot. You're going to see temperatures up to 30 degrees widely. Some places could go to 32. That's 90 Fahrenheit with those kind of upper air temperatures. But notice the 20 Celsius iceberg, which on last night's GFS was remarkable. 20 Celsius iceberg made it up as far as Newcastle. Can you believe? Last night's GFS. I did the blog about it. Really, really remarkable run. One of the hottest runs I've ever seen for the UK. But today, that 20 Celsius isotherm is struggling to get out of northern France. So quite clearly there has been a bit of a downgrade. As we go into Tuesday afternoon and evening, the trough is already starting to extend in off the Atlantic, so it's already starting to cut off the hottest of those southerly winds, and that's probably thunder breaking out in the south and west and moving in across the country. Precipitation forecast at 6 o'clock in the evening on Tuesday shows thunderstorms here in the west already. The east is still hot and dry. If you have a look at the temperatures, we see that it's widely being forecast to go up to 30 degrees on Tuesday afternoon in the east. Normally you can add on 2 or 3 degrees, so that's around 32. I think 90 Fahrenheit is distinctly possible in the southeast on Tuesday. But by Wednesday, that heat is going as the trough of low pressure is extending across the country. So at this point yesterday, this was when the models last night were still having us in this hot southerly. Today, it shows that by Wednesday morning, the hottest of the air is already being cut off. And we're going to Thursday, and then low pressure has taken over. The heat's gone off in towards the east, southeast of Europe. This is probably thundery stuff, Wednesday, Thursday. Could be some big thunderstorms, I would have thought, with that. And then we go through to day 10, which is Friday the 19th of August. And it still looks rather unsettled, really. There's still low pressure to the southeast in the North Sea. That could be bringing persistent rain towards East Anglia. And then this area of low pressure looks quite threatening here out to the west of us. That moves into the country over the weekend of 20th, 21st of August, bringing probably heavy rain and quite cool temperatures, maybe autumnal themed temperatures by then. East EWF, again for the weekend, the high pressure from the Azores extending up across the country over the weekend. So it's going to be a pleasant weekend, not overly hot, just warm, really nice conditions at the weekend. Start of next week, that high pressure begins to drift to the east, the winds are turning to the south, southeast, beginning to pull hot air up out of France. Here it comes on Tuesday, the heat pushing northwards via the Spanish Plume. Low pressure is out to the west. Go through 24 hours though to midnight on Wednesday, and the trough of low pressure is extending in, probably bringing thunderstorms, but cutting off the hottest of the air. So Wednesday, last night Wednesday was forecast to be the peak in the temperatures, when if the southerly still carried on, we could have potentially got it around the mid 30s Celsius, 35 degrees, 95 Fahrenheit. Today, the idea is that this southerly is cut off by Wednesday by the thundery breakdown. Go through another 24 hours to Thursday, and we're firmly back in a cool, showery, westerly flow. And then that takes us through into day 10. We go up to Friday the 19th of August. And there's that low pressure that the GFS is indicating going to move in over the weekend of Saturday the 20th and Sunday the 21st of August, giving us a very unsettled weekend. Of course, we can't go that far out with the ECMWF, but it does look potentially as though that low pressure is going to be moving through. So the heat wave is still on. Not sure it quite meets the requirement of the heat wave, because it has to go on over a certain amount of days. But certainly a bit of a heat burst anyway. Still on for early next week. Going to see the temperatures going up to around 90 Fahrenheit, I would have thought, unless there's any more downgrades by Tuesday. But we aren't looking at the intense, potentially even record-breaking heat that models were signalling last night. It's a more typical UK-style push-up in the temperatures, and then very quickly followed by thunderstorms by the middle of next week. So that's how it's looking with the heat. Just to leave with the CFS V2 for the next month. So these are 500 millibar height anomalies broken down to weekly periods. The first week takes us from the 9th through to the 15th of August. We know we've got the ridge building in from the west during this week. So it's a case of watching the Azores high coming in and eventually giving us that burst of heat through the early part of next week. We go through to the 16th, 22nd of August, and the model has the ridge out to the east then with the low pressure out to west. So that's the heat burst, but we know it might not last as long as this is seen. This is the 16th to the 22nd of August. We know that it's probably going to break down through the second half of next week into thunder. Not definite, of course. We've got to keep an eye on this. Could be that model ideas today to break this heat down quite quickly. Going to turn out to be wrong. So let's wait and see on that one. The next week period going from the 23rd through 29th of August. This looks rather blocked in terms of northern blocking, a lot of ridging developing to the north. Doesn't really show it, but you presumably have a trough underneath it, so that looks quite a dismal end to August, I would have thought. That's going to be pretty cool, and probably potentially quite wet as well for the final week of August. We're going to the early days of September, this from the 30th of August through to 5th of September. And the pattern's changed again. We've got above average heights to the south and low pressure up to the north. So this is a more typical Atlantic flow doing something like that. And in fact, for the south, there could be a lot of dry weather close to this ridge and potentially quite warm. I've explained in other videos, early September is often a period where we get the old wise summer, which is a period of dry and settled and warm weather in the early part of September. CFS is very close to doing that. This morning, coming back to the nearer time frame, again, summing it all up in terms of heat waves. So we're going to get a build of pressure over the weekend. That's going to give us a very pleasant weekend. Not overly hot, just warm. Temperatures low to mid-20s Celsius, something like that. Early next week, the high pressure will drift off to the east. It'll pull the air up from the south. So it will turn very warm on Monday, potentially hot on Tuesday, with temperatures going up to close to 90 Fahrenheit, I would have thought, in the southeast. But by Wednesday, we're probably having a thundery breakdown. And then the second half next week, back to cooler, fresher Atlantic conditions. So don't like hot weather, and I know there are quite a number of people actually that don't like hot weather. It's not as bad as it was looking last night. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.